To those joining us for the first time, would you be interested in coming a bit closer? A bit forward here. Thank you. And so for those joining us for the first time, and our visitors as well, we don't have a evening Eucharist. So it's really just a space for teaching, and we then break into smaller groups, and then basically look at some of the questions and discuss a bit of that. But much of it is really time spent on one's own, outside of the space, as we work through these questions as well. And so this evening, we don't have a song. And the reason for that is, I'd want to hear from any of us in terms of step one of powerlessness. Have we had any of that experience this past week? So if there's anything that one is able to resonate with, then maybe share a bit about that experience this past week around step number one, powerlessness, confrontation or confronting or admitting to something. But yeah, before we get there, I think let's just, for a moment, just close our eyes. I'm going to ask us just to take a deep breath in by our nose and slowly out by the mouth. A deep breath in and slowly out. So as you take a deep breath again, just tell the muscles in your shoulders to relax. And out. Take a deep breath in. And slowly out. And just continue that rhythm of breathing. And for a moment, just notice the day that we've experienced. Notice what we've, from this morning, waking up. Might have been a bit peaceful, the experience might have been rushed. Maybe we were late. Notice what were some of the frustrations that we had during the day. Notice maybe who were those frustrations during the day. Now notice what were the blessings during the day. What can we be thankful for? Maybe it was just a friendly face. Maybe it was a greeting or a word of encouragement. Maybe it was something in nature. Maybe it was a memory that came to the fore. And so just thank God for that. Take a deep breath in by the nose and slowly out by the mouth. Lord, we say thank you for the gift of being able to reflect, the gift of looking back and noticing your presence, yet also in those moments where we've not been able to notice you, not in any way does it indicate that you were not there. You have always been there. And so for that, Lord, we are so thankful. And so thank you for your presence in people during this day, your presence in situations, your presence maybe in challenging things today, in frustrations, in conflict. And then also your presence in the joys that we experienced. Your presence in the touch of others, in the smiles, in the hugs. Your presence around the dinner table. And your presence with us this evening. And so be with us further. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Tony, can you hear? Yeah, okay. So last week we started with the whole course is for those that are unaware. Just warm welcome to those joining us via the live stream as well. The whole course is focused on the book by Richard Rohr, Franciscan Roman Catholic priest. And the book is called Breathing Under Water, a spirituality of the 12 steps and the 12 steps. And the first step was on, anyone? Just checking here, powerlessness. Don't worry, every week we're going to add a step to it, hey? So by the fifth step, I'm sure we'll be able to remember them all as well. And so the first step indicates we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives have become unmanageable. And so if you replace the alcohol with other things, we admit we were powerless over what? What is that in our life that we've become addicted to? Is it our way of thinking? Is it something of a substance? Is it the way we bite and react at people? So just for the moment. And so anyone would like to share briefly? Is there any powerless or admission that we needed to deal with this past week? Anyone want to share? Anything that stands out? We were all had power this week. We were not powerless. Just checking.
I've been helping my son's mother-in-law with an application for a visa to go to the Netherlands. She'd booked her flights for the 5th of May. But there was a delay in getting the application done because they had to have something signed in the Netherlands. Once we've got all of that done, we then had to make an appointment for her to go and take her to the visa processing place. When we looked for an appointment, the earliest appointment was the 13th of May. But she was flying on the 5th of May. So I tried everything I could think of. I wrote to the helpline. I spoke to the consulate in Cape Town. I wrote to the WhatsApp group in the Netherlands consulate overseas. All of them said the only way to get this thing done is online. So on Friday, there was a bit of a breakthrough because the mother-in-law actually came to the point of resignation. And we know that it's handing it over. But she reached that particular point. Monday morning, I got up early to see if I could find a slot. Tried at 4:45, nothing doing. I tried at 6, nothing doing. And I tried off and on during the morning. I had my phone there and I had my computer there. And at about 1 o'clock, I saw a slot that was vacant, and it was for the 7th of April. That would have been fine, because she needed to get this thing in by the 15th if she was going to be able to keep her flights. But I couldn't get it to take. I clicked on it, it just would not work. And a little while later, I had a message on the screen. I had to clear the cache, and I had to do some other things and not have more than one device logged in at the same time. So I took a pic of that, and I sent it to my eldest son. And I said, please, when you get home from work this evening, can you help me to work out what I must do, because this is what's happened. Anyway, at about 4:30, he decided to have a look. Blow me down. There was a vacancy on the 18th of March, this Friday, but he didn't have the password. So he said, Dad, give me the password. So I gave him the password. He booked the whole thing, and the whole family's smiling now. We were powerless, but God came through.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Tony. Anyone else? I guess had you clicked at that point and getting the one in April or early May, when God steps in, he gives us what he thinks we need at this point in time. And so in our journey of powerlessness, the powerlessness again is where it says there, we admitted we are powerless. There needs to be an admission. I need help. And that's difficult for me many times. Because the one who, in one way, is there to help others doesn't necessarily want to show that you need help. Because how can others ask help of you when you are in need of help? So what is it that you need to show? That you're strong, that you got your ducks in a row, that you're okay. And so the first step is the powerlessness. I need help. The second step, which we're looking at today, is a desperate desiring. A desperate desiring. Came to realize that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. You see the connection? Powerlessness. I need help. Where am I going to get the help from? I came to realize that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So I thought I'll share briefly, quickly, a bit of what Richard Rohr writes. And then we'll deal a bit about this whole 3 areas that he makes mention of. He says, the surrender of faith does not happen in one moment. The surrender of faith does not happen in one moment, but is an extended journey, a trust walk, a gradual letting go, an unlearning, and a handing over. No one does it on the first or second try. And like I said this morning to the congregation, or the third try, or the fourth try, or the fifth try. And so what do? We beat ourselves for not having reached that point on the second try or the third try. Yet on the other end, we might take for granted the fact that God's grace is so freely given. I can do what I want to because there is a third or a fourth or a fifth opportunity as well. No one does it on the first try or the second try. Desire and longing must be significantly deepened and broadened. And again, can you notice again some of the themes we've had over the weeks? desire and longing must be significantly deepened and broadened. And so to finally surrender ourselves to healing, we have to have 3 spaces open within us. 3, not 1, not 2, but 3. And so Richard makes reference to these 3. And not just one open, but all 3 of them open simultaneously. And so what are those 3 spaces? Our opinionated head, our closed down heart, and our defensive and defended body. Our opinionated head, our closed down heart, and our defensive and defended body. And so that is the work of Christian spirituality. And it is work. And so finally, once those things open, a power greater than ourselves can lead us into a deeper and broader relationship with God. And so just think about your own faith journey. Think about that time when we made that commitment to God. Just think about what was open at that point in time. And sometimes the head was open and the heart, but the body just didn't want to. I remember growing up in a time where there were many altar calls in churches, and it didn't matter the denomination, and there was a strategy to it. And the strategy was, you get the person to first put their hand up where they are, okay? Because you can't just say, come to the front, because the defended body is preventing that at this point in time. So there's an openness of heart and mind, and then you say, wherever you are, close your eyes, no one's looking, you know? And if you want to receive Jesus, put up your hand. And 1, 2, 3 people start putting up their hands. And then you say, okay, now that you've put up your hand, come to the front. And so what's happened when you've lifted your hand up? You've immediately broken that barrier. No one's looking. But you feel as if now you can actually come to the front. And so there are different moments in our life when that actually happens. But here's the thing. As we experience that moment, we return back to what? To closing certain areas again. Sometimes the head, sometimes the heart, sometimes it's the body. We've experienced Christ, but there's certain things we struggle to open up, to actually keep it open for others. And so Richard says, religion is lived by people who are afraid of hell. Religion is lived by people who are afraid of hell. He says Christian spirituality is lived by people who have been through hell. Our relationship with God, Christian spirituality, is lived by people who have been through hell. How do you know if people have been through hell? Listen to their story. Because my hell will definitely not be your hell. Place of pain and hardship and suffering. And it feels as if one has been separated. And so many times in our life, in our journey, we've been trying in this step, in the second try and third try and fourth try to avoid hell. What does Jesus do when he dies? He goes down to the depths, we are told. And he opens up the way. As if to kind of say, to get to the resurrection, you have to go to the darkest, loneliest places and spaces. It's desperate, desiring. And so he goes on to say, I wish I did not have to say that, but religion either produces the very best of people or the very worst. And Jesus shares a lot of this in the stories. And so I want to share with you the story of the prodigal son. Luke chapter 15, from verse 11. And then Jesus said, there was a man who had 2 sons. The younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of the property that will belong to me. And so he divided his property between them. A few days later, the younger son gathered all he had and traveled to a distant country. And he squandered his property in desolate living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine took place throughout the country. And he began to be in need. And so he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country, who sent him to his fields to feed the pigs. He would have gladly filled himself with the pods that the pigs were eating, but no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired hands have bread enough and to spare? But here I am dying of hunger. I will get up and go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me like one of your hired hands. And so he set off and went to his father. But while he was still far off, his father saw him and was filled with compassion. He ran and put his arms around him and kissed him. And so what do we see here? We see the son arriving at a place of what? Of powerlessness. A place of quite low in his life. He's sitting amongst what? And so this would be seen as a Jewish young boy sitting amongst the pigs at this point in time. I guess is lower than the low in his life at this point. And so he realizes, oh my word, what am I doing? My father's servants live a better life than me. I'm sure if I go back home, I could be one of the servants. And so he rehearses the speech for his father. Now, has he reached the lowest point in his life? I don't think so yet. Because why? He's willing to become a servant, but not admitting yet, not wanting to take the responsibility for that which he's done. He's insulted his father. He's ill-treated the family. He's brought shame upon the family. So what didn't he do? I don't think he's taking responsibility yet. So make me a servant. The only responsibility with that is you ordering me around, telling me what I must do. I'll take that. No, that's an easy way out. As if the father's saying, I will restore you, but as I restore you, you need to take responsibility. Clicks had a special a couple of months ago. I think it was Christmas special. There was 3 mugs for the price of 2, 3 for 2 specials. And there was a message with each of the mugs, coffee mugs. And so I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, okay, each child, a message for each of them. And the one message on the one cup says, be greater than your excuses. I'm thinking, shut it, okay, it's that child. That's for. So I give it to him and he says, that's not me. Why do you think this would be me? I said, because all I'm asking is for you to take responsibility. So if the first response is, but it wasn't me. And what do? We go around in circles, and then eventually we get to the point of saying, yes, it was me. An admission. And so this young man is not even willing to take responsibility yet. There's a desire to return. There's a desperate desire to return back to home, to have all the luxuries of the home that he's missed out on. Makes you think, what is the reason for him returning? Is it the physical things that's drawing him back? Or is it really a heart of forgiveness and saying to his father, I'm sorry, man. I'm really sorry for bringing shame. And so sometimes this desperate desiring is a list that we sometimes give to God and say, Lord, fix this. And so God is so gracious, He will use the list that we come with and slowly form it and shape it into a deeper spiritual experience with Him. How does He do that? Well, in one way, once we've received what we've wanted, it's been fixed, what happens? Well, the desperate desiring goes away, isn't it? There's still a desire, but the desperateness of it is no longer there. We're okay now. And as we enter into that okay state with God, what do? We reclaim the power again. And we begin to remain in control. And so what is Richard saying to us? We must remain in a state of powerlessness and desperateness in our desire for God. Not at all. It steps into deepening our relationship with God. That's what the invitation is, yeah. And so Richard goes on and he says, within these three spaces, what are these three spaces? The three spaces is the mind that needs to be open, the heart that needs to be open, and the body that needs to be open. And so when you think of during the Roman Empire, under the Greek culture and influence, the different spaces, and Dallas Willard gives a wonderful illustration of these three spaces. He speaks about the one space being the gut. He says, in the Greek culture, the gut was a space of desire. So I'm hungry. What do? Is a desire to eat. And out of that comes this gluttony also, to want to eat more and more and more. But he says it's beyond the physical substance. In that gut can be desires for other things as well. And sometimes these desires move us not from a place of desperate seeking God, it actually becomes obsessive. There's an obsessiveness, an addiction to certain things. Can we become addicted to food? Of course. Just ask me. But that's an outward sign, manifestation of what? Of something in one's life. That's what Richard is pointing to. Alcohol is an outward, the abuse of alcohol and becoming an alcoholic is an outward manifestation of something, a problem, an issue that needs to be highlighted. And so this movement from the gut, this Greek culture of the desire being there. And so what's the difference in desire? There's our desire. What did he speak about last week? The ego. Our desire, and then there's also God's desire. Then there's the other aspect where we talk about this temperance, the chest, where what resides here? The heart. Greek culture, within the heart, within the chest, lies your what? Your character. Your emotions. Who you are. That's why when Paul speaks to the Gentiles, he's making a reference to, you are puffed up. Your chest is out. You are thinking that you are more than. You are better than. He's making reference to that. One's character that stands out. And then the third part being the mind. And so in Greek culture and during Roman medieval times, you would find the fact of it is in residing in the mind brings life to everything. The thoughts, the ideas, philosophical thinking. And so there's a separation many times between what? Body and spirit. as if there's a fight between matter, which is impure, while spirit is pure. But that moves, part of the belief and teachings around that shifts from philosopher to philosopher. So what happens when Paul speaks about this? He's talking about the fact that love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind. Moses makes reference about that in Deuteronomy. Jesus makes reference to that in the commandments. So does Paul. He's saying, when you're loving God from a place here, which is your heart, what does your heart give life to? Everything. And so when Jesus says it's not what goes in, but what comes out, he's making a reference to what is residing in our hearts. Does sin reside there? Because if there's sin residing in our hearts, that will what? Speak to our actions. If love resides there, there will be actions of love. And so, keeping that in mind, Richard says, in terms of the mind space, what should I do? Well, you need contemplative spaces. Just think about it when you're rushed, when you're in a hurry, when you're under pressure. Many times we can't think straight. We make, at times, rash decisions. Sometimes when we are emotive and there's an argument with someone, we say things that when we reflect back on it, sorry man, I didn't mean that. It came from an emotive place. And so he's saying, in those moments, find a space to reflect. When there's desperate desiring, then you need to open what? Your mind. Open your mind. How do you do that? Find a space. What do? We take a walk, clears our mind. Find solitude, quiet spaces. The second space, he says, open your hearts. And there's several things in opening our hearts. First, we need some healing. Healing of what? Of past hurts. We need the healing of past hurts. Why do we come many times to make a commitment to God? Because of past hurts. We come and we're saying, Lord, I'm at a desperate place in my life. I need your healing. Be mindful of the fact that the healing is not once off. The healing is not once off. It needs to happen again and again and again. Why? Because the hurts and the pains have piled up. And sometimes has formed this rock hard casing around our hearts that needs to be chipped away. So the one is the healing of the heart space. Part of the heart space is what? You need to be in the right relationship with people. And so if we're not in the right relationship with people, especially many times those close to us and family, what happens? We harden our hearts. We harden our hearts. We don't want to enter into that relationship. We don't want to get hurt again. And so what is this? Right relationships? Well, it's calls for what? Healing, forgiveness, dialogue, a listening to one another. And the third aspect of the heart space, Richard says we need right brain activities. Now, what are the right brain activities? Well, we need to listen to music. We need to dance. Even if you can't dance anyway. What happens when you do that in your own home and no one's watching? there's a freedom of it, eh? Doesn't really matter. Art, nature, fasting, poetry. These are the things that we need to get involved in, to also open our hearts. And maybe start there, and who knows what the knock-on effect will be in the other areas of our heart. So those are the three areas in terms of our hearts. And what are the third area that needs to be opened up is our bodies. To live in our body right now, to be present to others in a cellular way, is also the work of past hearts, healing of past hearts, and many memories that seem to store themselves in our body. My son, we went to the gym, and he says, "No, Daddy, I've got muscle memory." He's making the reference to the fact that even if you don't gym for a while, you pick up the weight that you picked up a month ago, your muscle will remember. But your body has that ability to remember. But your body also remembers if you've been hurt or when you've been hurt. Your body remembers that. If there was abuse, your body remembers that. We block it off, yes, but your body will remember. Richard says your body never lies. It comes back again. And so what happens in our relationships today about hurts that happened in the past, which did not happen during the relationship now, it enters into that space. And if we're not willing to experience the healing in there, it can have a negative effect in the relationship. He says, any massage therapist knows the power of healing touch, the importance of touch. That's why they say if you have a spouse, massage your spouse. Rub their feet. What's important here? Touch. Rub their hands. Touch. What does a child love from their parents? To be held. Touch. Little things like that. If you think about our struggling and poorer communities, what do children not experience? Touch. There's a hardness of heart. Why? Because of the way they're being treated, the way they're being spoken to. And so, like I shared this morning, scientifically, they've discovered that your brain lights up. So if someone hits you, there's a certain part of your brain lights up. So the physical violence that's caused to you, your brain lights up to indicate this is the pain. Then they discovered if someone uses words, so whether it's emotional pain or just abuse in terms of words, the same part of your brain lights up. So your body doesn't distinguish between physical pain and emotional pain or verbal abuse. For your body, pain is pain, which means it's trauma going through your body. You might think, but I don't feel anything. It's trauma. It's pain, it's hardship. And sometimes when children say something to the parents when they're younger, it's pain. When parents do something to the children or say something to them when they're young, it sticks. You'll amount to nothing. We use words like, "you stupid." And we think it doesn't stick. Begins to negatively influence them. And so the body is like an incredible middle child in a family unit. They don't want to be ignored. And so, Richard ends up with this aspect of saying within the church. He says, most head churches do not touch the heart. Most heart churches do not bother with the head. And almost all of them ignore the body as if of no account. And so in one way we minister in silos. Our focus is on the head, or the focus is on the heart, or the focus is on the body, he's saying. We need to open all three spaces at the same time to experience that transforming power. And so all we can do is keep out of the way. Note, keep out of the way of our defensive behaviors, weep over our defensive behaviors, keep our various centers from closing down. And the presence that is surely the highest power is then obvious, all-embracing, and immediately effective. I'll give you a typical example. If you're having a conversation with someone, which space opens up most of the time? The head space. We're analyzing. We're sometimes making conclusions already of what we're going to tell them. Sometimes we're thinking, can you please get done now, Grant? You're speaking for such a long time. We've made the conclusions. That's why it's important to notice what? The body language. So we're seeing the body. Is there defensiveness or is there an openness? Is the heart open? Is there receptiveness? Where do you see that? Many times I see it where? In the eyes. Look into people's eyes when we have the conversation. You'll see if there's a response or not. Let's leave it there. And then just break for 15 minutes. And the opportunity here is to go through, I guess, the first lot of questions there. And so we'll break into two groups, one group this side and the other group the other side. Think about, so you're not going to write anything at this point in time, a moment on your journey of faith, a significant moment of your journey of faith to this point. You can decide if you want to share it within the group. And who did you have to trust in that moment? Who did you have to trust? Is it someone? Is it a person? Is it God? Is it yourself? Who did you have to trust in that moment? Okay, and we'll get back in about 15 minutes time. Thank you.